Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Graying Jedi podcast. I am UrzaMaster. Joining me as always, Jedi Master Psyllium Maas and Lord Uther. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Jedi Council chambers. And today we close out and say farewell, for now, to the skeleton crew that we have been on an unexpectedly fun journey with. For the last few episodes, this is all on the two-parter that I like to call it, episodes 7 and 8 of Skeleton Crew. I don't want to steal any thunder here, but shall we say this was an unexpected journey in space? Take us away, Jedi Master Psyllium Maas.
Thank you, fellow Jedi Masters, UrzaMaster, Lord Uther, and thanks to you, Graying Jedi fans. We have come to the culmination of another Star Wars adventure. With Skeleton Crew, we're going to cover a two-parter, if you will. Episode 7, we're going to be in so much trouble, and Episode 8, the real good guys. Episode 7 was written by Christopher Ford and John Watts, showrunners and co-creators. Episode 7 was directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who is no stranger to the Star Wars universe. He did the somewhat controversial Coruscant-centric Mandalorian Season 3 episode, Chapter 19, The Convert, dealing with Dr. Pershing and Katie O'Brien as the former Imperial who betrays him and zaps his mind at the end. Lee Isaac Chung also was an Oscar nominee for Minari. I believe he won for Best Screenplay that year, too, original screenplay. And he also gave us Twisters this past summer, which was far more entertaining than it had any right to be. Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn Powell did play a factor in that, but Lee Isaac Chung delivered a solid professional blockbuster for Warner Brothers. Anywho, we're going to be in so much trouble, the real good guys. Basically, we bring our... Oh, and John Watts, show co-creator. He directed Episode 8, The Real Good Guys. This is it. We get back to Ad-Atten. Some of us were speculating, would this be an ongoing quest to get home? But in reality, it appears the journey was going to lead us back all along and take us to some new surprises along the way. I would like to point out some of my one favorite moment of Episode 7 in particular, and the one that changed forever the direction of one character. I loved the opening of Episode 7, Lee Isaac Chung's We're Going to Be in So Much Trouble, the forest chase between the parents of our stranded crew and the droids that were there. Anyone could see the visual resemblance to E.T., flashlights and lights in the forest. And in fact, the little drone that they sent to send out a message to the kids looked almost identical to E.T.'s spaceship that comes and picks him up. The design of it, I'm sure, was a tongue-in-cheek / inside Easter egg. But very big E.T. vibes, keeping in with the Amblin vibe this whole show has given us, so I thought that was delightful. And in Chapter 5 of this, you have a lot to learn about pirates. We saw Jod Nawood, a.k.a. Crimson Jack, a.k.a. whatever name he was going under. We saw him turn on the kids and threaten Fern and them once the treasure, or the route to the treasure had been discovered, and he had some of his former pirate cohorts doused in an acid bath off camera, and you heard their shrieks and screams. And we asked ourselves at the time, is Jodwa, is he going to be redeemed? Is he really just like a Han Solo scoundrel or a Lando Calrissian whose loyalties are just convenient to whatever situation they find themselves in? We asked ourselves that. And then in Chapter 6, we saw him captured by the pirates and sort of rally them back to the cause and his leadership, challenging Brutus the wolf-like creature that was running in his absence and was trying to put him at the airlock. And you could convince yourself, yeah, maybe Jodwa, maybe he is, just somebody who, whenever there's an angle, he's got to play it. Better Call Saul of the Star Wars universe. But I think episode 7 here, I mean, we got the answers that we were looking for, even if they weren't the answers we were expecting. Like, he's a bad guy. He is a villain. And you know this when he shoots a defenseless Brutus in the head, right? Not even Han Solo, who shot first. Greedo had the draw on him, and Han had to, they either shot simultaneously or Han killed him in cold blood. However you want to interpret it. He was armed. Brutus was trapped in a mining claw, helpless. The kids had overpowered him when Brutus seized their vessel and brought them into the landing bay. And Jodwa just points a gun at him, shoots him off camera, and it's murder. I mean, it's even Cassian Andor, who did something similar both in Rogue One to sacrifice a whistleblower, and in the first episode of Andor when he's looking for his sister and he gets harassed by the two Port Authority cops, and they try to take him in, and he ends up being forced to kill them. There's always still that moral choice of, well, they left me no choice, right? I was put in a corner and I had to defend myself, or I had to make that difficult decision. This isn't that case. Jodwa points a blaster, shoots him, eliminates his rival, becomes the pirate king again. And that, to me, I mean, that is a bold, bold Star Wars choice, because we want to like Jude Law. We want him to be a rascal and a scoundrel and a heel, but also someone that we can redeem with. And after that, there really wasn't. Right, all the way through the two-parter, Jode Noir, like, he was a force of aggression, threatening the kids and the parents with his lightsaber. The entire tense standoff in the control tower in Episode 8, like, this was Anakin Skywalker versus Obi-Wan Kenobi, kind of like, I thought they were going to have to kill him to redeem him. So kudos to Christopher Ford and John Watts and everyone at Lucasfilm who said, you know what, just because he's a big international movie star and he's in our show, we don't have to sand off all his rough edges and make him likable. He can be the villain, and it's okay. And he can continue to be the villain should we see further adventures and installments of this crew or characters. They left his storyline ambiguous and open in such a way that I would welcome further glimpses into Jode Noir and so forth in any capacity. So those were my two big notes for episode 7. Episode 8, the wrap up, which is just, again, literally an extension of the previous there. We learn about the supervisor. Some of us even speculated that could have been the long lost Pirate King. It turns out it was just a droid that cleverly catches Jode Noir in a lie when he says he's a Jedi and a Republic emissary, and the droid says, well, wait a minute, Order 66 said the Jedi are evil, so where are you lying now? I thought that was terrific. I thought the pirate attack of Ad-Atten, although we weren't going to see like a full-scale blood in the streets massacre, I thought there were legitimate stakes as they just start shooting up the streets and trying to conscript the families into slavery. Like, I'm like, this is, we've got to save these guys. This isn't just some, oh, ho, ho. It's like if the Fratelli brothers really were like menacing instead of somewhat cartoonish, if we're going to use the Goonies analogy. So, and using that, I'm glad that Jode Noir didn't turn out to be Sloth, like the misunderstood hero with a heart of gold. I mean, they made a choice and they went with it and they executed it. I thought the special effects in the last 2 episodes were, again, outstanding. The vaults of Ad-Atten looked amazing in terms of just the sheer scope and scale. The space battles and the pirate ships and the atmospheric things and the X-Wings showing up. This was, again, feature quality. They put their nuts and bolts into it, and John Knoll, who was the visual effects supervisor, he worked on Phantom Menace. He's that guy that co-invented Adobe Photoshop. You could tell he's an ILM pro. He's been doing this for 30 years, and you didn't get the sense like, oh, that looks so CGI, so fake, and so forth. Like, they took the trouble to spend the money to make it look good, and it looked great. And we had our kid characters. They all played a part in there. They didn't have to be rescued or have, another character bail them out. They all used their wits, their lessons they'd learned throughout the season. They all were complementary pieces that helped do it. I love seeing Wynn's dad, get to be the hero that Wynn was looking for. I love the fact that Wynn can now choose his destiny, and you had KB, and you had Fern, and you had Neil. And what was the first thing that Neil did when they finally got home? He took a bubble bath. I love that. Like the first shot we have of him after, his parents have hugged him and so forth. He's sitting there with his bubbles, and Wynn knocks on the window and says, "We got to get out of here." So that, again, gentlemen, I'll let you guys say what your overall views was. Graying Jedi fans know how I feel about Star Wars in general. This show, for me, was a pure delight and a retro callback to those Spielbergian dreamlands that we inhabited when we were in our, late, early years. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was an excellent show. Excellent finish. The last two episodes were the perfect two-parter conclusion, I think. But I would challenge that I think Joe did get his redemption, or at least an explanation. They left it, like you said, ambiguous, but there's a moment there, he explains, they kidnapped his master and made him watch them murder his master in front of him.
right.
As a Padawan. He doesn't explain how he got away. He just learned some basics of the Force, and the execution of his rival. In a way, the whole series, his rival's been threatening to kill him.
That's
So
true.
he had a choice, but in a way, he really didn't. So he had to, in a sense, do that. I look at Jode like I look at Reva in Obi-Wan, because she had very similar Order 66 experiences, where she kind of had to go kill to be under the radar and to survive. And I think Jode's in the same spot, and he also surrenders at the end.
Right.
And I think they kind of leave it ambiguous as to whether or not he actually gets captured in the end, too. He's sort of just, he's like, all right, I've lost. And what comes next for Jode is a huge question, because there's a lot of Star Wars now that he is privy to, and AT-AT is privy to. And what does this mean for the New Republic? Because you're talking huge quantities of credits that are now in the hands of the New Republic. You have this, for lack of a better word, I guess, Republican planet that is dedicated to the ideals of the Old Republic that will absolutely play right into the New Republic, course, minus the supervisor, which is Old Empire, early Empire, but Old Empire. I think this series, in a way, sets itself up for a season 2 or a future, casting callback. Do you pick it up with the same cast of kids? Do you, just pick up Jode, or just pick up AT-AT as a location, and maybe we see some cameos from these kids in, a New Empire series or something? Who knows? I love how they chose to tie it all up. It felt high stakes without being high stakes in a way. Like, you knew the kids were never in any real danger, but it felt like it, especially for KB in the ship crash. That was, I mean, come on. I mean, that was great. And yeah, I never thought when I saw the marketing for this show before it came out that it was going to take us on this incredible journey. But kudos to the writers, to the whole staff. It looked better than most of the Star Wars movies. So I can't say enough good things.
Yeah, thank goodness the marketing for the show was nothing like what the show really was. And, usually it's the other way around. I hope Joe doesn't get a redemption, even though I guess maybe he got a little bit of one. I just hope he stays as this almost like an ambiguous bad guy in a sense. I would be perfectly fine with that because the question you could ask yourself is, are pirates really bad? I mean, to the point, like overbearing bad like the Empire is. I mean, yeah, they're kind of looking out for themselves, but, what is their reasoning behind what they do? I just don't think it's that much of a bad guy thing to be a pirate. I don't know if that makes sense, and I really don't care. But with that being said, I would be fine if they just left this alone. Like, I don't need Skeleton Crew 2, Electric Jedi Lou, or whatever we want to call it, or New Credit Lou, whatever. I don't think we need that. If we do, I think you might be going down a slippery slope that could ruin what you did with the first season. So, then again, maybe I should trust the writers because they did such a great job. And then again, I probably don't even know what I'm talking about. So with all that being said, I would be fine with just, like I said, hey, this was a nice one-off. Maybe come back to At-Atten in general. Know that it's there in a sense. And leave it alone. Unless one of these kids becomes a Jedi with Rey, I could see that possibly going down.
Ooh.
But with all that said,
I'd
be okay if they ended it there.
I think if At-Atten had been an ongoing quest, it would have been more obvious, and then you would have wanted, we want to see these kids get home multiple seasons. I think to your point, I would like to see them pop up in Ahsoka, or something. I would like to see them pop up in Mandalorian and Grogu, or the Mandoverse films, or what have you. So I think I'm with Uther in the sense that if they announce a season 2 tomorrow, I'm in. But if they say, no, but we're going to keep Jod and put him, in the Mandoverse film, I'm also okay with that. I think that would be just as cool. Like, how do we sprinkle in these characters with these existing, how do they show up in an Ahsoka, for example? I think Ursa raises a good point. I think both of you actually sort of touched on it. Now that we have At-Atten and all that money, I think this is how the First Order, I mean, we've seen that the New Republic can be a little bit feckless and ineffective. I think now this is where a lot of, how did somehow Palpatine returned? How did they build all those Star Destroyers that were sitting out there at Exegol? I mean, the First Order has to rise from this. We know ultimately the New Republic, according to lore, gets to fail, or at least gets to be seriously challenged. So don't be surprised. I don't know if they'll ever address it directly, but I wouldn't have been surprised even in some alt universe fan fiction that the Imperial remnants that were already embedded in the New Republic and the Shadow Council and all of these things we've seen, if they don't start getting their hands on some of that money, and some of that money goes towards rebuilding, the Empire the First Order that we see in the sequel movies, I think I don't necessarily need to see a series of embezzling money from At-Atten, but if that's how it gets explained down the line somewhere, I think that totally tracks, as far as that goes. So that's interesting. Suddenly there's a lot of money, and we know the New Republic ends up, going belly up for one way or another. So it wasn't because they didn't have the funds. So anyway, something to think about.
I'd be perfectly fine with revisiting the planet with Jod, or whatever we're calling him, and he's in the Empire, or the Shadow Empire, or whatever we want to call them, hires him to steal those credits. Right. I would be fine if they hired him as a pirate to go take a bounty out on Grogu. I,
Right.
I
Yeah.
I would take any of that. I don't think that's what we're going to see in the Mando movie, but I'd be fine if there was an appearance like that. I think that would be a nice way to maybe tie it in a little bit more. But like I said, if we never saw them again, great job, Disney. Like I'm perfectly fine with that too, because it kind of feels like they don't know what they're going to do with Mando anyway. Because there's rumors of a season 4, and then they're just going to do the movie. I kind of question, like, what are their next steps? Where are they going to go? Are they going to go, hey, you know what? We're just going to lean into the next Rey movies, which I was just reading something about. There's going to be an anime out there with the new Jedi that might play a role in Rey's. This just came out a couple hours ago. In the new Rey movies, what do they do? Do they have to throw another series out there while they're making the Rey movie to keep you interested? Would it be nice to have a break where there's nothing, and to build up the anticipation? I would almost be perfectly fine with that too. We're gonna end with Andor.
Ahsoka.
And again, what are you gonna do with Ahsoka? I don't know. There's a lot out there. Or put all your, take Ahsoka, whatever route you're gonna take that, and it leads into the Rey movies. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Makes me wonder. It just makes me wonder what they're going to do. You put all your eggs in one basket with the Rey movies or even the Mandoverse, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. And I don't see Disney doing that. I think they want to diversify their Star Wars portfolio. I hate to think of it that way, but money talks, and sadly enough, fans don't drive how series go or franchises go. I think either way, we're going to end up with some good Star Wars. Probably going to end up with some stinkers. I think Mando and Grogu is going to be good. I think Andor Season 2 is almost guaranteed to be good. Ahsoka Season 2 is maybe hit or miss. I think the biggest buzz I'm looking forward to is how much Ewan McGregor wants to come back as Obi-Wan. And that's something I think is going to be very interesting going forward, because there are ways, and you can have Qui-Gon back too, by the way. If they did an Obi-Wan Season 2 about what does Obi-Wan do until he becomes, old man Obi-Wan, there's a lot of story there too. And there are still other stories in this universe they could tell.
Obi-Wan, the rumor on him was...
No, hold on.
Oh, go.
Hold on. I got to talk to Disney real quick.
Okay, talk to Disney. Got it.
Disney. You do the Ben Kenobi series as you do the Vader series. We're going to alternate them every other week. And we're going to see their lives kind of parallel each other leading into A New Hope. You got that for free, but you can always hire us, Disney. We're here for you. Anyway, Psyllium Maas.
They haven't done that in a while, but the last time they tried like that alternate, they did Hardy Boys Nancy Drew in the 70s, where you'd get a Hardy Boys episode.
There you go.
And then you'd get a Nancy Drew and so forth, and they were
Enough
on
said.
parallel tracks. No, but what I was going to say is the Obi-Wan rumors I'm hearing are not necessarily a follow-up series yet, although we do have ideas for those, but to show up in Ahsoka Season 2 with more Clone Wars live-action flashbacks a la Anakin and a young Ahsoka in the world between worlds. So, hey, if we can get 2 or 3 appearances from him in that, as the, that version of Kenobi, post Attack of the Clones, but pre-Revenge of the Sith, that would be terrific too. So, yes, I think just like Star Trek, what we don't know is what is exciting. There are a lot of chips being pushed to the center of the table on Mandalorian and Grogu. If Mandalorian and Grogu does what they want it to do and captures the global audience and gets everyone excited on the big screen again, then again, the sky is pretty much the limit. The Mandoverse movie that Filoni is writing and working on that would sum everything up, or movies, that I'm not saying it's contingent solely on Mando and Grogu, but if Mando and Grogu doesn't do what they want it to do, then yeah, we're going to see downsizing and scaling down and so forth, and that would be a shame too. So let's just hope that Star Wars fans and movie fans in general continue to do it. believe it or not, I know we talked about the Acolyte previously on the Graying Jedi, and we had our positives and a couple of negatives in terms of that. That turned out to be the second most watched Disney Plus streamer of last year. Like the show overall, in terms of, I mean, they measure these things in wild ways. But for all of the talk of, oh, it didn't have the viewership or all that, I mean, like I said, it was like Disney Plus's second most watched thing overall for the year. And I mean, if you're a Disney Plus company, like that's important. Like that's, maybe some of the Acolyte characters also pop back up in flashbacks and things like that. I mean, there's ways to do it. We don't have to think so linearly there. I don't think another season of The Kids Get Lost in the Universe is what we would do. So anything that Skeleton Crew in a second season potentially would have to look different, to Lord Uther's point. But like I said, maybe the cleanest, safest way to go is just having them just show up either as Easter eggs or, I love Joe Noir as like a pirate bounty hunter. Like, I love that. I mean, that could be terrific somewhere, like all of a sudden he pulls off his helmet and he's got a blaster on Ahsoka or something. Oh my God, that's Joe Noir. And he knows the Force. So I love that. I love it.
Well, my fellow Jedi Masters, our Kyber Crystal ratings for this two-parter finale to Skeleton Crew are very much warranted. Psyllium Maas, take us away. What Kyber Crystal do you fire up today?
I'm wearing green, and I'm wearing a Stranger Things Hawkins t-shirt because, again, that's somewhat of the vibe. It's kind of a copy because Stranger Things attempted to play in the Amblin universe, before Skeleton Crew ever got there. They're all sort of the same musical notation. But this was, think about it, gentlemen. We didn't have a stormtrooper. We didn't have Imperial remnants. We didn't have any of that. We really didn't even have, we had a couple of bounty hunters, in brief cameos. But this was a show about piracy and the Goonies and these kids that we grew to love, KB and Fern and Neil and Wim. And I just, like I said, we always talk about, well, can Star Wars do more than the Skywalkers? Yes, they can. And they can also do it tonally, where it's not all grim and grindstone, but can be that sense that draws in family audiences and younger audiences and older audiences. So just a wonderful, whether it's an experiment or the sign of things to come. This is a breath of fresh air for the franchise, and wherever it's placed in the firmament, it deserves that credit for being a little bit different, but not so different that the fan base didn't feel like they were in a galaxy far, far away.
The pencil is mightier than the lightsaber. So the writing that was done on a series that Urza and I just wanted to totally pan the entire time and rip apart, once again, shows what great writing can do. So this entire series gets a green lightsaber from this very graying and bald Jedi.
Fantastic. And I will follow up with a classic Medal of Honor Frontline Green. Excellent series, excellent couple of episodes here. I'm with Lord Uther. I really wanted to hate it. I ended up loving it, and I'm so glad to be wrong. Highly recommend it. If you're a Disney Plus subscriber, not only should you also subscribe to Pending Rebrand and the Graying Jedi podcast, stay tuned for all things Star Wars. You should definitely check out Skeleton Crew if you have not. Binge it. It is so good, and you will have a wild thrill ride of 80s, 90s kid action adventure fun with the gravitas of Star Wars, the Jedi, pirates, and bounty hunters. Not to mention a little bribery, a little swordplay, and a little bit of heart to close out the series. But we will venture back out into that galaxy far, far away soon enough. But on the council here, we will always say, may the Force be with you, always.